Welcome to Guthrie Sports Page Television. Chris Evans with Phil Nichols here as we get set for the big week. The Guthrie Blue Jays and the Carl Albert Titans. And Phil, it's a game that many people talk about right when the schedule is released in the summertime, and coaches, players don't want to talk about it as much. And as fans and media people and all that good stuff kind of respect that. But now it is here, and we can actually talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody marks this game down. It's you got number 1 against number 4 in 5A. Obviously, Carl Albert has a long history of success and a great tradition, and you know, so do we. You know, we don't have as long of a tradition of success and a great tradition, but we're definitely building one. So I look for it to be a great game. It's on the road at Carl Albert, so that'll be a fun environment, and I suggest everybody get out early.
You talk about, Guthrie Carl Albert series, and the Tulsa Union and Jinx, they had their own rival, and rightfully so. That's, kind of a nationwide type thing. Mm-hmm. But outside of that one, especially 5A, and this side of the state, across the entire state, this could be the number 2 rival.
I think it's definitely a top 5 rivalry in the state. I mean, there's other very good rivalries, but we're definitely a top 5 rival. Yeah, that thing.
You got it.
And at the end of the day, I don't think there's any question it's the biggest game in 5A as far as just what it means. I mean, typically, this is going to decide the district championship, and who gets 2 home games. Now, obviously, we get done with this game, we come right back, and we've got another tough game after this Thursday next week against Shawnee.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be a big game. We've got, obviously, everybody knows about David Oku, one of the best football players in the state, and I think everybody considers him probably one of the top 1 or 2 running backs in the state. So it should be interesting.
You look at the series, Rafe Watkins been here since 2001, and they've got through Carl Albert 7 times, and Guthrie's coming out of this series 5 wins to 2 losses, and not too many teams can say that. Many coaches can say they have a winning record against Carl Albert, but it's just something between the Rafe Watkins and Rose. Everyone wants to kind of make a hatred rival, but between those 2 coaches, they get along just fine. I mean, play golf together.
Well, there's a lot of respect between the 2. They're friends outside of the season. They've got a rule. They go fishing together, play golf together. They're friends, yeah. And they have a lot of respect for one another professionally and
People
personally.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they hate that. But Gary Rose, and I've said this countless times, he's a class act, and Carl Albert's class act. Their fans understand football. You don't ever worry about, at least in the recent past, you sure don't ever worry about. I can't speak to what Carl Albert was like years ago, but in the 8 years I've been here, they've always been hard, physical, clean football games, and a lot of mutual respect. So, it's got all the elements. The coaches are friends. They have a rule that once the season starts, they don't talk, and then when the season's over, then they're back to being friends again. But it's what high school football is all about.
Well, let's talk about this Guthrie Carl Albert game and kind of how we got here. Carl Albert Week 1 opens up at Tulsa, Washington, like they always do when drop a big goose egg. Of course, they go with the spread offense,
right,
kind of out of the blue. And Coach Rose said they had the athletes and the wanted to run that offense, and then Booker T. Washington, I guess, showed them that might not be a good idea. Oku was stopped early and often, but now they go back to what they do best, and that's running football. And Oku, 25, 30, 35 carries a game sometimes this year, and a little bit of an injury-riddled season this year and last year, but kind of went back to the bread and butter of the I formation.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of people that were kind of looking at each other with kind of a strange look when they went to the spread.
Yeah.
They've had so much success, and but it didn't take Coach Rose long to get right back.
Week 2,
yeah,
the
week
next
2,
week.
and they've just kind of been on a march ever since then. So, I don't know what they got. Booker T 2, and I think Tulsa Central 3. There's 4 or 5 teams I think that legitimately have a chance to win 5A. I think even though Lawton Mac was upset by El Reno this past week, I still think you're crazy if you discount them going into the playoffs. They'll still end up winning that district, and I don't know if somebody was hurt in that game or what. That would be interesting to see. Obviously, they had a quarterback that was throwing that thing about 35, 40 times a game, and it just seems odd that they can go from, putting up the kind of points they were to just laying an egg. But weirder things have happened.
Sure.
So.
Well, let's look at this game kind of X and O's wise, and it's going to be interesting. I think the difference is the Guthrie offense working against the Carl Albert defense. We know about the Blue Jays. Keaton Cowan's able to throw the football over 300 yards last week in the win over Noble, and now over 1,200 yards. But the Blue Jays were trying to get that running game going, and not quite where they want it to be. Over. I don't know, what was it, Phil? 155 yards rushing, which is pretty darn good, and passing the football 198 yards per game, so that's pretty good. But the coaching staff, I know, would probably like to have that rushing number from 155 somewhere an average of 200 yards.
Right.
And so that will be, can the Blue Jays run the ball, and Blue Jays can throw the ball, but they're going to be passing against one of the best secondaries in the state of Oklahoma, Class 5A or 6A. Of course, it all starts with the free safety in Datejuan Lowe.
Yeah, Datejuan Lowe, he's 6'1", about 185-pound kid, real athletic. I think he does a lot of return work for him as well. You'll probably see him on the offensive side of the ball also. He's a Division I prospect. I think he's got offers from all the major schools in the Big 12.
I think OSU's leading the way so far.
Yeah. And, he had a good game against us last year. So there's no question he's the Joe Stoner of this year on that defense. Mm-hmm. He's kind of the heart and soul of the defense.
And then you got Ozell Littleton and Trevante Porter. A lot of people around this area somewhat forget about him, of course, but they're big names. They're been playing this system for forever, but on the varsity level for 2-3 years now. Mm-hmm. And Walker, the cornerback, Walker and Littleton are the cornerbacks, and Walker's somewhat overshadowed between those four players, but Porter, just a junior, Lowe's a senior, Littleton's a senior. So these guys have been in this contest before, and it'll be interesting to see Keaton Cowens against this secondary.
Yeah, one thing that gives me a lot of confidence is Keaton Cowens had great success against them last year. Keaton went into the game at Carl Albert, and to be quite frank, if it wasn't for Keaton Cowens and the way he stepped in, I think we lose that game last
100%,
year.
100%, yeah.
So I have a lot of confidence in Keaton. If Keaton has some time to throw the ball, we should win the ball game.
Okay, I went to the Cotton Bowl yesterday, or filming this here on Sunday, and I saw a football team in Oklahoma that could not rush the football, less than 50 yards rushing. Last week, the Blue Jays, not even, I think it was like 25 or 30 yards in the first half, and then get close to 100 yards in the second half. Can the Blue Jays win the football game rushing for 100 yards or less?
Well, I don't know what, Yeah, I think they can. Go back and look again. I'll go back to last year. I don't know how many yards rushing we had last year, but we didn't rush the ball well against them last year. As a matter of fact, I think last year's game was probably one of the worst games we played all year against Carl Albert, and we still got out of there with a victory. But, the reality is that, we're not. It's going to be tough for this club to put up 200 yards a game rushing because it's just not. We got a lot of young guys up front that maybe as the season progresses, they can get to where we can get a little closer to that. I think this is just going to be a good old-fashioned back alley brawl.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be one thing too is this is probably from a size perspective we probably match up as well against these guys if we have anybody all year.
Yeah. Especially in the trenches.
Right, absolutely. So I think who knows what could happen. Heck, Clayton might be back this week. I don't think anybody really knows that yet. Clayton Smith.
Game time decision.
But, JP's done a great job stepping in there, and he's ran the ball hard.
You saw Josh can get a few more carries.
Josh got some carries. You got to have – that's why everybody says the championships are won up in the trenches. Yeah. And our kids are getting better every week, but they still have a lot of ways to go. But, Carl Albert's playing a lot of young kids, a lot of inexperienced kids also. So – we'll see what happens, but I like our chances.
Bill, they're young on the defensive line, but of course they're led by Christian Smith. He's a big force on the defensive line, and then linebacker Zach Ayler, he returns back from. He was a key contributor to the Carl Albert team last year, and so again, it'll be interesting against the Blue Jay offense against the Carl Albert defense. You look at the Blue Jays. 198 yards passing on an average, 155 rushing. The Carl Albert defense allows 120 yards rushing the football and 157 passing the football and only give up 16 points. Meanwhile, the Blue Jays average 33 points offense. So, again, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but I think the difference will be the Guthrie offense working against Carl Albert defense.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's going to be the rule, although we've given up the fewest amount of points in 5A this year on defense. We were talking about that off the air a little bit.
Only give up 5.33 a game.
Yeah,
that's healthy.
So our defense and these kids have really been coached up, and the staff's done a good job of putting them in positions where they can have success all year. Some of our younger kids and some inexperienced kids, but I think at the end of the day, there's a reason why Carl Albert's ranked 4th or 5th, and we're ranked number 1 or 2.
Yeah.
For the majority of the season.